we want to keep like 20 minutes or so at each of these sessions to kind of open up to see what we've been seeing in the field, questions we have, things we don't understand, things that we've seen that, you know, we know are problems. You know, like this week, like I said, you know, I found a couple things that needed to be brought up and addressed. You know, this guy needed to, you know, the same thing about, yeah, I mean, there's been a few. So, I don't know. I want to open it up and see, yeah, who's got
something we were touching on before about like the Cat 5 heads, something I've been running into a lot, and I don't want to say any names either too, but there's an impression going around the company that it's okay for you to put a Cat 5 head and have them not touch the top of the head by the pinouts, and that they just cut in through the cable, and that gives you your connection, which isn't true. So you have to have it completely in there, because I've seen them a lot where there's a little bit short in the middle of it, and they're longer, like you were saying before, and it's not a direct signal.
someone has actually said that?
Someone,
like
I don't want to say
verbalized
any
that?
names, but yeah, a couple people in the names have, you know,
Well,
that was something that went on. So I just want to make sure that people know that these heads have to be.
Jim, everybody knows that.
Everybody knows.
okay.
No, Jim's the one that told me that.
I mean, that's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard.
I agree.
Yeah, when you're putting a Cat 5 head in, the fact is you have to look at several things. You have to look, you know, always your pin's always going to be on the bottom. You know, from left to right, you want to look at it. You want to make sure, obviously, your color code is in the right. But here, you need to make sure that all 8 pins, you should be able to look at it and see the copper, the gold inside. That needs to be touching the top. If it's not touching the top, it's totally worthless. And, you know, same thing. You could have left to right, you could have the colors match up, you know, all day long. But if it's not touching the top and it's, you know, an 1/8 of an inch down here, you're not passing anything. And I mean, I've cut so many heads off and had to redo them. You know, same thing, because maybe you get 4 or 5 pins that are touching the top and the other 3 aren't. And, you know, say you might be passing audio, you're not passing video, or, you know, because it doesn't take, you know, a lot of things we use don't take all 8 pins. Like if we need internet only takes 4 pins. It doesn't take all 8 pins. Something that requires a lot of bandwidth, like an HDMI balun that's passing video and audio at high resolution, you know, you need all 8. So it depends on what it is, but when you crimp, and we're going to go over some of this soon, because with this Hope Tower project, we're going to be doing a lot of those shielded Cat 5 heads. So we're going to literally have a whole day where all of us, we can't leave until we get at least 10.
2 floors worth.
10 that are working. Yeah.
Those are those Crestron heads.
Yeah.
Oh,
because we
love those.
we have not done well with those. The shielded Cat 5 heads, they suck. They're hard.
Yeah, I love them too.
Yeah.
Maybe
But-
Crestron has a training class on it.
Yeah.
There we go.
So listen, what I do when I crimp these things, you know, after I get it in there and I push it in, you need to be applying pressure as you're crimping it. So sometimes, I mean, if you want to put your crimper on the ground and push down, I mean, whatever you got to do, you push it. You can even wiggle it a little bit to try to get the outer pins, if the outer pins are down, to get them in. But you can't just stick it in and crimp it. You have to put pressure in because you want to get it. And just like this is one, you know, this is the head I did. I mean, if you look at how far the jacket goes up, the jacket can't just go all the way up, because, you know, 1/4 of an inch up is where the actual pressure point and the crimp point is. So you need to make sure that the jacket is, you know, almost halfway up there. I mean, if you look at that, I mean, that looks like it, you know.
Store bought.
That's it, bro. Professional. So yeah, I mean, everything in our business is about terminations. If your terminations stink, you know, it's not going to work. You know, same thing with XLRs and solder. You know, if your solder points, you know, you've got 3 connections here. You know, sometimes people are sloppy and lazy that they'll solder and, you know, and some will fall off, and then you'll have, you know, pins 2 and pins 3, the solder are touching each other and shorten things out. So whenever you do this, you know, you got to make sure your terminations are proper and, you know, clean. Plus, I mean, you know, people look at this. Clients look at people's works. I mean, for the most part, you know, people aren't in the back of the racks looking at our equipment, but you know, we wanna take pride in our work. And like I said, we give people a huge, long warranty, and we need to make sure that we're putting out a product people are happy with, and that, you know, we take pride in. You know, and that isn't going to short out.
Supposed to like it too.
That's not going to short out a year from now. So.
Got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So say we're in a situation where we're running multiple Cat5 cables. So obviously we're running single Cat5 cables. Is there a solution where we have, I don't know, say a bulk cable that actually houses multiple Cat5 cables?
Yeah, so they make structured cable. So I used to run it a lot, wiring up buildings. So they make it in different, like our camera cable is Siamese cable with like a 18.2 and a, you know, RG59. So the structure cable you can get with like four Cat5s in one big cable. We don't run it because you have to be going from point A to point B. You can't break off anywhere in between. Yeah. Because the jacket on it is super thick. Like the ones I used to run in houses would have two RG6 coax cables and two Cat5s. So it was cool because I'd wire up to a jack, and I could have cable on one, you know, coax. I could have like DirecTV satellite on the other coax. Then I could have phone and data, you know, all on one cable. But it has to go from one point to the next. You can't break it off.
So that's what I'm thinking, you know, obviously with the big project coming up, I mean, we'll have centralized, you know, say IDF closets, for example, where we're housing, you know, I'm thinking of the crush con systems. Pretty much the heart of it is gonna be there. And so we're coming from all these locations and going there. So as opposed to running a bunch of single category cables.
So once you break out on the other end though, like if you're going to each schedule or ties
Well,
pallet,
if you're not breaking out, so I'm talking about essentially direct.
If you're going direct rack to rack or whatever, you know, then yeah, I mean, you could do something like that.
So from the individual rooms, like say the 10th floor, for example, there's 3 large conference rooms, there's 2 small conference rooms. They're all going to be restaurant. They're all going to have to go straight back to the IDF closet in the back of the building. So if there was just one cable, and I also bring it up because I know a guy who owns a cable company in Detroit who said he would build it, and that he has done it before, and it would just simplify everything. And I could probably get us a seriously good price on it if that's a solution that we want to go in. So it's a really good quality cable too. Jumpers Cable is the name of the company. So he would build it for, you know, whatever length that we need.
Yeah.
So on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, if, you know, something like that would work, like I said, if you're going from one location to the next without breaking off. But even in this room, say we had, you know, say you're going to the rack with the one end, and then in this room you've got a jack over here and a jack over there. Then you literally got to take a knife, you know, carve the jacket,
Oh, of course, yes,
and
yeah.
strip the whole thing back. But I mean, for long runs, yeah, it is easier to pull one thick wire than everything else. But
I'm just like thinking it.
no, it's good. I mean,
like a data jack that had
it's
two
good.
ports.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, they do make Siamese cat cable. I mean, it also comes, you know, does it make sense? I don't know. That's just something you got to think through. But that's a good thought, though.
I say you start running on fiber and get some fiber modems at each end. It's one line.
There's
Or really small.
there's that.
That's what I would do. 'Cause it's-
All right. What else? What else have people been seeing in the field that, you know, the goal of training? I mean, the goal of business. I mean, we want to be better at what we do. We want to put out better products. We want to make clients happier. So, we're not here to rat anybody out. We never will be here to rat anybody out. But if you see something in the field that needs to get adjusted, that needs to get addressed, and that changed, like I said, we want to put out better products. We want to be better at, you know, at our jobs and what we do. So, I mean, you guys think of anything off your head that have been out in the field that you've seen that we can improve upon? I know we've talked, you know, in recent times about communication, paperwork, things like that. You know, we're working on that. So I'm not talking about necessarily that, but from an install perspective.
anything you
Pretty
see that,
tough.
no, I mean, is there anything that you guys see that, in terms of the way we do our systems that you think we should improve on?
Not so much lately. I mean, I have seen in the past, we talked about the whole, wiring your stereo input into a, mono
Yeah.
input, an
Right,
amplifier.
right,
A left and right signal to a positive and negative input on a balanced connection, is incorrect. I mean, I haven't been out in the field a bunch, I guess, recently, but, I haven't seen anything much like that. Since the last time we got together, I haven't seen it.
That seems to be a pretty big thing when it comes to.
That's one of the
noise in
biggest,
system.
yeah, that definitely is one of the biggest. The terminations are huge. I mean, not many guys use spade connectors. I mean, we definitely need to start using these more regularly.
And if there's something that you're not finding on the shelf, just make a note, and we'll make sure we
Yeah.
stock more rather than less, just so we're sure that you guys are going prepared.
Yep. Same thing. I mean, sometimes I mean, I see a lot. I mean, people haven't used wire nuts on connections, and these are things that we need to be using. I mean, every single speaker we're jumping, even if it's 100 speakers we're putting in a thing, then that's 200 wire nuts we gotta use. I mean, it's just, if we gotta go to Home Depot and then buy more, I mean, that's what we do.